good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Camberley Chess Club Zoom meeting. And this evening is a special meeting. It's a great pleasure to welcome Keith Arkell back again. He, in fact, was one of our first big name speakers back in June 2020, a month or so after we started these Zoom meetings. So it's a great pleasure to have him come back again tonight. Thank you on behalf of Camberley Chess Club for joining us again.
Well, thanks, Martin, and hi again, everybody. I wanted to, in the first game, I wanted to talk about pawns and pawn structure. Philidor said that the pawn is the soul of chess, and particularly my own chess, that is very much the case. My whole game revolves around pawn structure. I like to get a better pawn structure, and then play around that with the pieces and hope to win as effortlessly as possible. Doesn't always come off. Now, in my book, I talk about what I call the hierarchy of pawns. The hierarchy of pawns. My hierarchy of pawns is a little bit different to classical thinking. In classical thinking, they talk about the center pawns as being the most important. For me, it's a little bit different. In traditional normal games of chess where both players castle kingside or the king stay in a center, I have this. I value the pawns as follows. I say the A pawn is the least valuable, and then the B pawn, and then the C pawn, and then the D pawn, and then the E pawn, and then the F pawn. And I can demonstrate a number of openings which kind of seem to agree with that. For example, in a Sicilian, it's considered that the move D4 is a little bit anti-positional against C5, but what white gains in compensation for that is the initiative, more space, and so on and so on. The actual pawns, the D pawn is considered to be a little bit more valuable than the C pawn, and this is also true about the E pawn and the D pawn. The E pawn is considered a little bit more valuable than the D pawn, which is why Black's prepared to play the center counter. Why Black's prepared to play E4, D5, E takes D5, Queen takes D5, Knight C3, Queen back to D8. Black's made a very, very small gain in a pawn structure because an E pawn is a little bit more valuable than a D pawn. For example, Black can play E6 and make the king very, very safe. Without an E pawn, you don't have that option. And this is true. We all know that an A pawn is less valuable than a B pawn. So, for example, if Black has a pawn on B5 and White plays A4, Black plays B takes A, White takes back with a rook or a queen. White's clearly made a positional gain. We all know that. Then Black will have a weak A pawn. And slightly more subtly, in the, for example, in the Queen's Indian, there's a line, I won't start moving the pieces about, but there's a line where Black plays B5, Black plays B6, Bishop A6, and B5 to try and exchange the B pawn for White's C pawn, and Black prepared to give quite a few tempi to do this. White usually plays C4 takes B5, Black plays Bishop takes B5, White plays Knight C3 attacking the Bishop. Bishop has to move back. And but Black considers it's worth it to exchange the B for the C pawn. So and just a final example is when Black plays the Dutch defense. If White can achieve the move E4 against a pawn on F5, it's considered a kind of positional gain. It's considered a positional gain. Again, even in the Dutch, the White E pawn is considered slightly less valuable than the Black F pawn. And I've kind of lived by this for the last 4 decades. I've lived by this kind of philosophy of my hierarchy of pawns. And in the following game, I'm playing against the Benoni. I applied the theory. In the old days, that the Benoni would be considered to, well, now as well, but it was only really considered in the Benoni that White would use the extra pawn in the center and try and achieve the break through E5, and Black would try and use the queenside majority, the 3v2, and try and create a passed queenside pawn. This was the traditional thinking in the Benoni, but I played a little bit differently, and I still apply my hierarchy of pawns. I tried to actually do a minority attack on the queen side and attack with my minority against White's majority. So that's enough talking, and then we'll get on with the game. What I'm going to say is that rather than just doing it as a kind of lecture from beginning to end, I think it might be quite good if we could make it a little bit interactive, so that if anybody wants to ask me any questions as we're going, then just stop me and ask the questions. I think probably one of you guys at the controls will need to maybe unmute them or let them in, or however it works. But yeah, I wanted to make it as interactive as possible. Also, I'll be asking some questions myself. I'll just be stopping sometimes saying, what would you play in this position, and in which case we can kind of unmute everybody. And
I've got everyone muted by default, but if you want to ask Keith a question or make a comment, you can unmute yourself, as I understand it. But if you do that, please announce who you are when you speak, so Keith knows who's speaking. Thank you.
Hi Keith, it's Andy Smith.
Hi mate, hi Andy, good to hear you.
How you doing? All right. I just think,
yeah, I'm good, thanks.
As you know, I've been playing chess a long time. I've never heard that explanation of the pawn hierarchy before. It's actually really interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but I see what you mean.
It's like when you look at all the different openings, it starts to fall into place. You realise that in all these different openings that the players are trying to make exchanges according to this hierarchy. So I started to think, and I started to rethink. You know, the sort of classical books always talked about the pawn center, but I just slightly tweaked it and had a kind of moving across from left to right and slowly increasing in value across to the F. I think the G and H are a bit unclear because they had to do with king safety and things like that. I mean, sometimes capturing towards the center in the case was particularly in the case of H pawns, and often in the case of G pawns.
You qualified that by saying your castle in king side.
How
often do you reckon Newcastle queenside when you're white?
When I'm white, goodness. Well, with either colour. I mean, I guess it can just be searched in my games, but you probably can.
Obviously, not very often.
Yeah, it's not very often. No, but I mean, there's occasions when it seems the right thing to do, and so I do it. But there's not many in my repertoire. There's not many systems where, you know, it's a default that I'm going to have to castle on a queen side, but there are a few. There's a very, very small number, and other times it just happens because it seems the right thing to do. But yeah, when one or both of the players castles queen side, then the whole hierarchy breaks down because a lot of it is to do with where the kings are.
Yeah.
So I think it's applicable in kind of maybe 85 or 90% of games, but not all games.
That's very interesting.
I talk about it a little bit in. I'm not going to keep plugging my book, but I talk about it quite a bit in Arkell's endings because it's relevant. It's so relevant to all the different kinds of structures that I play. I'll probably talk about it in Arkell's Odyssey as well, but that's getting on a bit now. That's 12 or 13 years old. So okay, so we'll soldier on a little bit. By the way, the game itself, this was played in 1995. And it was against Haitham Hamdouchi, who was a very strong grandmaster. He was the strongest. He may still be. I'm not sure. But he was certainly at the time the strongest ever player to emerge from the continent of Africa. He was Moroccan. I think he's now Moroccan stroke French, and very strong grandmaster. And this game was part of my final grandmaster norm. It was played in a French league. I was playing for Nancy, and Hamdouchi was playing for Montpellier. So it's an important game for me, completing my final GM norm. So here we go. A lot of Benoni players like to wait for white to play knight f3 before they play the Benoni, because there's so many horrible lines for black if white's f and e pawns are free to move. Knight a6. I think that was, I don't know whether it's still popular, but that was a very, very popular move at the time of this game. I think I played Mihai Suba a number of times, and he always played this knight a6 move against me. Knight e2, heading for c4, and knight c4. Now there's a way that black can play here, which makes the position very unclear, but it's kind of considered a little bit better for white, and so it doesn't happen very often. And that line is, I'm going to try moving pieces back now and see what happens. That line is b5, knight takes d6, queen takes d6, bishop f4. I think queen goes to here, white plays here, knight e6, bishop takes a8, knight f4, takes, and I think it's bishop h3 takes, and I'm not sure, but I think it goes something like here, and king g1, or maybe f3 or something else. But this black can play this line, but it's a tiny bit better for white, and probably easier for white to play just because white seeks change up. But this is something that black does have an option of in this variation. And how to go back to the position, so I'm just going to do it like this. So b5, but only players tend not to play b5. And so he played the other move, which is 98. a4 to stop b5. Of course, black doesn't want to play a6 here, because then white plays a5 to fix the queen side. Oh yeah, I shouldn't have played that move overboard, but this is a very quirky moment, because you know, when you're teaching chess to beginners, you say you get the pieces out as harmoniously as possible, get the knights out, get the bishops out, then connect the rooks, get the queen out, possibly, but not too early. But my next move breaks all the rules, because instead of getting the bishop out, bishop d2 or bishop f4 or something, I play this very strange move, queen d2. The move I'm playing for is b4. Instead of waiting for black to go a6 and b5, I want to beat back to it and play rook b1 and b4. To play b4, I need the knight on c3 protected, bishop on g7 attacking c3. The idea of b4 is to kind of go rook b1, b4, bc, and just nip in the bud any attempt by black to get those pawns rolling. And then you control the b file, and then later maybe you can start thinking about playing in the center. So this is the beginning of the b4 plan. So I want to go, I'll maybe do it slowly: rook b1, b3, bishop b2, bishop a1, then b4. But it's all about the move b4. And my opponent responds. It is like a near super grandmaster, just playing this weird queen d7 move, and almost out of respect for my queen d2. He's playing for b5 basically. He's covering the b5 square. b3, and he plays b5. And b3. Taking b3 again. And knight a5. There's an important square that I'm eyeing up now and for quite a while, which is a c6 square. And it's the other square that you get access to when you achieve when you achieve b4, you get access to c6. I haven't achieved b4 yet, but by getting rid of black's b pawn disappearing, it means I can get a route into c6. That's a very important square when you're playing against the Benoni. And now we get some swapsies. And black plays bishop d7. So, okay, so I'm going to just pause here for a moment, and can players make suggestions? Can we have some suggestions from you guys, please? A plan for white.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Vikas. From Warwick. I've been playing chess for around 3-4 years. Seriously, I think the pawn on d5 is undefended for white. So either white can play e4 or exchange his knight for the bishop. I think it makes more sense to play e4 and just solidify that pawn, because otherwise his own light square bishop will be blocked and black might get a better minor piece.
Yeah, e4 is a normal move. It's a perfectly good move. There's one downside. If I play e4, then I lose control. I lose the bishop. The bishop loses control of the c6 square. This is the one downside. So I kind of want to have everything. I kind of want to I want to protect the pawn, and I want to keep the bishop controlling the c6 square. So as if I eventually get a passed pawn there, the bishop will be fully supporting it. So there's, I mean, e4 is a normal move, but there's a better move, and also the move has also got a kind of a plan attached to it.
Just putting the knight on c6 and creating a passed pawn if black decides to take.
Yeah. I mean, that's I could play that immediately. You're absolutely right. I could play knight c6 immediately. I kind of felt that there's no rush, because the moment I put it there, it's kind of got to be taken off. So now, if let's imagine, think ahead. Let's imagine that I've played knight c6 and black's taken it off, and I've taken back. Then, what will I then want to target? What would then become weak in black's position?
E7 pawn.
Which pawn? Sorry.
The e7 pawn.
Yeah, a7. That's one pawn. Yeah, and another one.
The d6 pawn.
Exactly, the d6 pawn. That's right in the heart of black's position. And now, if I can put pressure on d6 before black even knows that, before the I don't know, how can I put this? If I can threaten to pressure d6 without actually pressuring it, if you see what I mean, so that I can pressure it from behind my pawn, so that when I play knight c6 and when black takes off and then I take back, then it'll be under pressure. But I can choose the moment for playing knight c6. So yeah, d6 is the weakness. So I played rook d1 and a6, and now h4. This is another. Sometimes it's good in chess to attack on more than one front. So I can carry on my plan of rook a d2, eventually play knight d6. But I kind of, by playing h4, I'm kind of keeping black on their toes. I'm saying, I may or may not play knight c6, but I may or may not play h5. If I play h5, I'm then going to follow it with h6 maybe. Then you've got to move your f pawn, and then when I play knight c6, then the a2 to g8 diagonal might be a little bit weakened. So I'm keeping black guessing. I'm keeping my cards close to my chest at the moment. I think it's probably a good idea to not play your trump straight away, but just to slowly build up. So I played h4. No concrete variations yet, but I just played the move, and black played bishop there. So I carried on with this plan of kind of attacking a d pawn before I'm attacking it, so to speak. On rook b6, and now I played h5 again, just keeping the pressure on both sides going. Queen e7, and now I struck knight c6. It can't be, the black can't really leave it there. It's controlling too much of the board. Takes, and now I'm threatening the d pawn. So black plays knight b5, and well, where shall I put the queen? Any ideas?
c4.
Reason?
Keep pressure on d5.
Oh, with the idea of going to d5. Well, eventually going to d5, or yeah, okay. Queen c4 is possible. Yeah, I kind of like the long diagonal. I like the a1 to h8 diagonal.
Queen a1.
Yeah, I played queen a1 because I think that's a beautiful diagonal. If I play h6, then there'll be the mate threat on g7, and there's a kind of harmony because the rooks are doing a job on the d file, the bishop's doing a job on the h1 to a8 diagonal, and the queen's just covering really a lot of the board with the file and the diagonal. Queen a5 might come sometimes, but now I'm going to ask another question. Strategically, what would I like to achieve in this position? Don't say checkmate. Think of a micro plan. What is it? Can you say a little plan? Which, if I could achieve that little plan, I would have made some kind of a gain.
Tim here.
Yeah.
I noticed the knight's holding d6 for him, so maybe bishop f1 to swap it off.
No, that drops
Possible,
the c pawn.
Yeah. It's interesting idea. But, yeah, you're kind of. Yeah, this is quite often happens in chess, that you kind of you do something, but in doing it, you stop doing something else. So kind of one of the secrets of chess, high level, I'm not talking about my chess, but high level chess is to kind of do moves that improve your position without harming anything. This is the kind of the secrets to top level chess is to do something without harming your position and without allowing your opponent to do something that they couldn't do before. No, I'm not looking for a specific move, because this isn't actually the moment to play the move that I'm talking about. But as a plan, can anybody think of an exchange that I would like to make, if I could possibly make it?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you possibly exchange black's c5 pawn for your b4 pawn?
For my which pawn? Sorry, for my
b4 pawn.
b3 pawn.
Yeah, b3 pawn. Yeah.
Yes, you've spot on. This is absolutely right. This is completely correct. It's correct on all levels. It's correct according to the hierarchy of pawns. Which, by the way, talking about the hierarchy of pawns, you'll notice that at the moment I have an e pawn. My opponent has what has my opponent got? My opponent's got I have an e pawn. My opponent's got a d pawn. So I'm slightly up on the hierarchy of pawns. And also I have a b pawn. My opponent has an a pawn. So I'm slightly more towards the king side. So I had a better pawn strategy. But yes, you're absolutely right. If I can swap my b3 pawn for black's c5 pawn, that's a huge gain according to the hierarchy. It's black's most important pawn in the Benoni. This pawn on c5, supported by the pawn on d6, keeps the whole Benoni position together. Get rid of that pawn, and then I'll be able to support the passed c pawn. I'll have another route into d6 via perhaps the b4 square at some point. And also, my only weakness is the b3 pawn, which can be attacked by rooks on the b file. So yeah, if I could swap those 2 pawns off, that would be wonderful.
Can I comment something?
Yeah.
At one instance, the reason why I was a bit hesitant about this answer, because I thought if I make the trade, let's say b takes c5 and d takes c5, I'm removing the weakness, but the rooks are coming down the d file, so it transforms into another kind of advantage, I guess.
That would be a very nice advantage. Yeah, I mean, if I threaten an exchange, if I manage to achieve b4, then I think black wouldn't be able to allow me to play b takes c, because then there'll be an isolated a pawn, there'll be an isolated c pawn, and as you say, the d file I would have complete control, and the position will be very, 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 very bad for black. So I think the moment I achieve b4, black will have only 2 possible replies. One will be c5 takes b4. The other will be c4. I need a good answer to both of those. As soon as I have a good answer to both of those, then I will play b4. This is the next strategic aim in the game. So now I forgot who's moving. It's black to play.
Are you looking to exchange queens as well?
I presume that's aimed at my style particularly, or maybe not. Maybe not. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, aimed at maybe your style, but also maybe his pawns are you get rid of his queen, and then the d pawn becomes less defensible. So
yeah. No, it's a thought. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure whether that would increase or decrease the pressure. I'm not sure. I think in this case, because my queen's so good, I actually think that. I think I've had the better queen. I think in this position, my queen actually adds to my advantage. Also, the other thing is that my queen helps me achieve b4. This really important break b4. Black's queen has nothing to do with whether I achieve b4 or not. My own queen helps a lot in achieving b4. So yeah, I actually think that in this position, it's black who would like to have the queen swapped off. I think black would make a gain. I think black would then be able to perhaps bring the other rook into the game and bring the king round to e7. And I think it would actually lessen black's task if the queens weren't on the board in this case. But I take your general point that when you have a structural advantage, often getting rid of the queens is the way to go.
I mean, if black played queen e5, that would be quite bad, wouldn't it? Swapping the queens that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be very bad. Yeah, then I'll take and go. I don't know. Well, probably rook c1, because rook d5 would allow rook takes c6. So I'd probably take and go rook c1, and that would be that looks like it will be just immediately winning. I win a pawn and with an overwhelming position. So yeah, black can't sensibly exchange the queens. But if black could just lift the queens off the board, I think in his position, black would be very happy to do that. So okay, so black played rook d8, over protecting the pawn, and yeah, this is probably one of the most subtle moments of the game, because I want to achieve b4, but if I played b4 at the moment, how would black reply? What is the problem with b4 in this position?
C4.
Exactly, c4. Yeah, if I play b4 now, black replies c4, and that pawn can come to c3. Black's got counterplay. It's not a move I want to play. Black can get a dangerous pass c pawn. So this is a big problem. So I need to now. If black played c takes b4, then that would be great, because I would have queen a5, forking the rook on b6 and the pawn on b4. When black defended the rook, I would have queen takes b4, and I would have achieved the next strategic aim successfully. But yeah, c4 is a problem. So I now need to devise a way to have an answer to c4, and this is very, very subtle. This next phase of the game. I don't know. If anybody's got any ideas, then yeah, far away.
Can I comment?
How about, yeah, it's Tony here. How about playing bishop d5?
And what's the idea?
Well, the idea is, I was actually looking at being quite blunt and trying to play king g2 and rook h1, but also in line with your plan of playing b4 with the bishop on d5, you can play b4, and obviously you're then preventing black from playing c4 as a response.
Well, yes. Well, you were right in what you said about the plan of bishop d5 and king g2. I mean, this is you've kind of got the answer in a roundabout way. I mean, I think if I play bishop d5 with the idea of b4, then black will still have the reply c4, because if I take off bishop takes c4, then black will have rook takes c6. Really, yeah.
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Can I comment?
Doesn't bishop d5 also threaten h6?
Yeah, bishop d5.
You can't block with f6 then. You can't block with
bishop d5 certainly does threaten h6. Yeah. So what would black play?
Queen f8, and the h6 pawn might hang.
That's a good one. That's a good reply. Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to offer a counter, sort of intuitive, which is to take on g6, play bishop d5, and then maybe shift the rooks to the king side.
You've got the right idea. You've got the kind of the idea is not to checkmate black, because it's just impossible. You're not going to be able to do it. He'll just defend against it. But you feign to play for mate. And which is what I did. I didn't play bishop d5, but I simply played bishop f3. It's the same idea. I'm feigning to play for mate, because I'm saying my next moves are hg, king g2, rook h1, rook h8 mate. But I'm not really playing for mate. What I'm really trying to do is induce black to defend against the mate, which he did with f6. And now let's carry on. What do I now play?
King g2.
Very possible, but there's no mate anymore, so it's all a bit kind of cumbersome. If I go king g2, I'm going to go take. I'm going to go rook h1. I'm going to, it's a slow. The rook on d2 is going to have to go back to d1. So it's a kind of like it probably takes about 6 or 7 moves, and it's not. I mean, it's a plan if there were no other plan, but I think the idea of bishop f3 wasn't really to mate. It was to help me with my other plan, with my positional aim.
Colin here. Can you play h8g and then queen b1 to support b4? Oh no,
Okay.
it loses material, I think.
Oh, nice c3. Actually, no, because then there'll be queen takes g6 check.
Yeah.
So okay, so hg. Doesn't the people mind that I'm not actually moving the pieces on the board? I mean, it's quite good to visualize this stuff. So hg, queen b1, and now knight c3 is not possible because the queen takes g6 check. But I guess black plays king g7.
Yes.
threatening knight c3. So I'm kind of, I've got to then deal with knight c3. So yeah, I've got to move the queen again. But yeah, interesting idea. But okay, so any other ideas? What's the move I want to play?
Queen a5.
Queen a5. So let's say, I don't know, let's say black plays the rook back to b8.
Can't you just take the a pawn?
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's say black doubles rooks then. You're absolutely right. So queen a5, rook d b8.
Jim here. Can you play Queen C1 with a view to having sort of Queen C, yeah, being able to force B? You know, you've basically got the Queen covering C4.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be a kind of good plan. I mean, it's a kind of perhaps a second best move. It's a move. It's a move that helps me do what I'm trying to achieve. So it's probably the move that it may well be the move that I would play, except that I can do it quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play b4. Is there any reason why I can't play b4 immediately? Bear in mind, I played bishop f3 for a specific purpose. It wasn't really to play for mate. It was to induce f6 to stop the mate. But really, I was doing something on a queen side. So what's changed now? What happens if I play b4 now?
Yeah, well, c4 drops a pawn to bishop d5 check.
Oh, not bishop d5 check, because then we're back to the problem of bishop takes c4, rook takes c6. But there's another move after b4, c4. There's another move which has now become a winning move because of the f6 weakness. So what?
Queen a2.
Queen a2. You've got it. Yeah, Queen a2, and suddenly, but no, before black had played f6, Queen a2 would be nonsense because either c3 or knight c3. But now it just the pawn's just pinned and I win the pawn because Queen f7 is not possible in view of bishop d5, and d5 isn't possible because it's on pre. So yeah, this is the real point of bishop f3 and all this h5 stuff was to play b4. And now black has no choice except to take it. And so we've made the favourable exchange according to the hierarchy of pawns. We've opened the C line. We can give the C pawn extra support. We haven't got a backward B3 pawn anymore. We've got a very strong pawn on C6. Black's got a weak pawn on A6 and a weak pawn on D6. So I think it's fair to say the position is now strategically winning. But the game has to be won. So let's go on to the conversion phase. So the H pawn served its purpose, so I swap that thing off, and I'd now start to just maneuver against the weaknesses. So rook c2, rook c8, just tidy up king g2. King a pawn, knight defends the a pawn. King b pawn, rook defends, and queen a3, and finally the one of the pawns will drop, because if the knight defends a d pawn, then nothing will be defending the a pawn. So that's a pawn one. Still got to win the game. Still only one pawn, and the pawn's well blockaded. So the next phase is to just improve my pieces. So I check, then I go there. So it's a small improvement. It's gone from a6 to a7. Now I'm very happy to. Well, in fact, I was going to say I'm happy to swap the queens, but in fact, black can't swap the queens off because I take back, we check, and then play c7. So black covers the c7 square, and then some more tempo gaining. Check. More tempo, just improve the queen, and then try and bring the rook in. So I'm just slowly improving the pieces all the time, trying to break this blockade on c7. Any ideas of what my next move is?
Something like queen b2 check.
Okay, and then if queen f6.
If queen f6, then just maybe going back with queen b8 and just forcing the queen back once more.
Okay, and then so then black goes back, and then what would I do? So queen b2 check, queen f6, queen b8. Say black then goes back, queen f7. Then we left with basically it's white's moving the queens on b8 instead of b7. But can I do anything useful there?
Yeah.
What would my next move be there?
It's Tony again. Can you play the bishop then round to d1 and potentially to b3?
Yeah, I mean that ought to win. It ought to win. Actually, there's a slight nuisance in that black's then got queen d5 check. Actually, that's a big nuisance, isn't it? So I mean, the idea is good, but the practicality of it is not so easy.
Paul here. Can the queen go to c8 and then d8 is in the d pawn?
Oh, Paul, yeah, that's what I played. Yeah, I'm just creeping up. I'm not, in this game in general, there's very little kind of long calculation. I think that's true in chess in general. There's very little long calculation. Somebody said the moment you try to do long calculation, whether you're whatever level you are, whether you're a world champion or whether you just started out playing chess, if you try to do a long calculation, you nearly always miss something. So in this game, it's all about little micro plans, just little short-term ideas, little skirmishes to improve the position. And this is another example. I just want to, black can't move much. I just want to creep in. I want to go rook b7, and then I want to go rook b8. And then when a rook's on b8, then there'll start to become threats against the black king. There'll be a mate threat on h8 and so on. So, and as you say, yeah, if the queen goes to d8, there'll be a threat against the d pawn. So again, it's this business of slowly improving your position while not harming it in any way, and while not allowing black any options that weren't available before your move. So, for example, this was the problem with bishop d1. The problem with bishop d1, it's a great idea, but it worsens the position of something and enables black to play queen d5 check. The thing about a move like queen c8 is that you're not giving anything back. You're just improving everything. So I played queen d, and I know he played. I mean, it's very, very difficult for black now. But he played quite a creative. Well, he played d5 first. Okay, that's a normal move. Just trying to restrict my bishop a little bit. So I crept in, rook b7, and this is where he played a very creative idea. So yeah, I'm just looks like I'm a few moves away from winning now. But he brought the king to the center. This is brilliant defense. King f6, queen d8, and king e5. So it's like I still can't force a win here. I mean, his king's untouchable. My pieces have kind of gone around the edges, and his king's escaped from the edges and gone to where my pieces are not. So now, can anybody? There's probably a lot of ways to win this, but I found quite a nice way, I think. Can anybody think of any ideas? I mean, I'm sure that all ideas are good, but I just want to see if anybody thinks of my idea.
Martin here. Bishop d1 looks much more playable now.
Yeah, I was just looking at bishop d1 actually. Yeah, bishop d1 looks very playable. But okay, let's say you go bishop d1, and let's say you can also go bishop b3. Would you be able to break through there? I mean, maybe you could. But is it certain you can get through? I'm not sure how much.
I was thinking of doing f4 check first, then putting the bishop on b3.
Oh, in that case, you're equally right with my own idea. Yeah, bishop. Yeah, essentially, the final kind of bolt is to play f4. If you can play f4, then black will be, the king will be in a bit of a mess because it'll have to go somewhere it doesn't want to go. So yeah, I bishop d1 is one way of doing it. I kind of did something similar. I just kept it on that. I thought, well, there's no real difference between the bishop on b3 and the bishop on f3, but both ways I want to play f4. So I reversed. I thought there was a kind of like an artistic value to playing king g1 and bishop g2, because earlier, in order to get b4 in, I played bishop f3 and then king g2, and now it's I kind of reverse those moves in order to play f4. So I played king g1, and if he lets me go bishop g2 and f4, then I'll win, because if you imagine after bishop g2 and f4 check, the king will only have 2 legal moves. One of them is f6, which will then pin the rook and allow me to win with rook takes c7. The other is e6, which will allow me to go rook takes c7 and bishop takes d5 check. So he cannot allow me to go bishop g2 and f4, and he found probably the only way to stop that, because he's completely tied up. He can't move anything. He can move a few things backwards and forwards, but that's about it. So after king g1, he found g5 and bishop g2 and g4. So what to play? Any ideas? How do I make progress?
Queen h8, says James.
Hi, James.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. What about Queen h8? It would force some exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, do
you want exchanges?
Yeah, I'm only 1 pawn up, and let's say I went Queen h8, Queen f6 check, King f6. I don't know. Again, I don't know that I've improved my position, because the black is then threatening King e6 and then King d6 and then King takes c6. So I think I actually kind of, again, it's like I think my queen is probably the best piece on the board, and black's queen is just floundering around. So I think all of my pieces are better than all of black's pieces. But how do I push black over the edge? How do I do it? What's the
Well, if only we had a strong player here, they'd tell you.
What about rook a7?
We've got many strong players. We've got many strong players.
Talking of strong players.
Oh my God! It's a repeat
Welcome
from last
to Jonathan Levitz, Grandmaster.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey,
Good evening.
glad you could make it. Lovely.
Hi there, Keith.
Hi there.
How about rook a7 in this position with the idea of queen b8 to b2?
Actually, the interesting thing is you've found the move, but for the wrong reason. It is indeed rook b8. And now,
Eric Morecambe.
about this position, it's black's move. What can black do? Black's got 7 things. What can black do? Let's go through each one in turn. Yeah, it's Zugzwang. If so I just pass. Rook a7 to pass. So I mean, f4 is ridiculous. D4 is ridiculous. It allows queen or pawn takes d4. So black has to move a piece. The knight can't move without leaving e7 on pre. The king can't. If it goes to e6, I go rook c7 and bishop d5 check. Win a queen. If the king goes to f6, you're self-pinning a rook, and rook takes c7 wins. So you can. The only thing you can move is the queen. You can't. And the only way you can move the queen. Places you can move the queen are places which keep c7 defended. So in fact, the only possible moves are queen g7 and queen h7, and g7 is slightly better than h7. So black plays queen g7, but this is slightly worse than something or other. So what did I now do?
Rook takes knight is tempting.
It is.
I don't know if it works.
It's not. I think this the black king scurries away. I think rook. It's very close. It's rook c7, queen d5 check, king f6.
Yeah.
Queen d6 check, king g5. It's got that g5 square. Otherwise, that would be a nice finish.
Queen b8.
Okay, queen b8. Let's say black moves the king back to f6. Are we getting anywhere?
Can you play rook a5 and then try and zigzag black again so that you can't defend the d pawn anymore?
I think rook a5 is a winning move. I think it's the same as the move I played. I think, yeah, I mean, it'll win a pawn. I mean,
Can you play Can you play bishop d5 right away?
Yeah, this is why in this position this is a true Zugzwang, because at the moment the queen defends d5, and so after rook a7, the only piece that can move the queen has to move away from d5. And yeah, indeed, I played bishop takes d5, and Hamducci resigned in this position.
So what happens after knight takes bishop?
Okay,
after knight takes, yeah. The point is now the queen's not defending d5. I've won a tempo because the queen would have to go back to f7, and then the rook on e7 is hanging. So I would go there, and then there, and I'm 2 pawns up. So that's complete winning. So yeah, after I played rook takes, after I played bishop takes d5, he resigned. So yeah, rook a7 was. So John intuitively knew rook a7 was the move without needing to know the specific reason why. It's a good effort. But yeah, so that was that.
Good game.
Very good.
But yeah, so although it's tactics, it was essentially the hierarchy of pawns that was the theme. It was about making favourable pawn exchanges. So yeah, so shall we have a 5-minute pause and then I will go on to the second game? Or does anybody want to ask any questions about this game, or have a few minutes of questions if anybody wants to?
I have a question about this game. In the starting, in the very much of the opening phase, you mentioned the plan for white was to play b4 and sort of beat black, and the plan for black was to play b5 in the Benoni. But I was just curious that instead of going for the b5 plan, because after a4 there was a hole on the b4 square, could black have just played something weird like knight a6, knight b4?
So at this point, I'm just trying to think what the structure. Let me take the game, but I mean, I'm just going to do it in this laborious way because I don't know how else to do it. I'm just going to go back to the kind of position that we're talking about. Can we all see this? Can we all see this position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we talking about
After a4 has been played?
Oh, okay. So yeah. Okay, so this position, yeah, and now you're talking about regrouping the knight round to b4. I think that's a reasonable idea. I mean, I don't think it's theory, but I think it's a reasonable idea. The drawback will be the reason why black played knight a6 to c7.
Yeah.
Was in order to try and play b5 as quick as possible. Black wanted to play b6 and then a6 and then rook b8. And the way I played, I tried to achieve b4 before black achieved b5, so that I'm the one creating pressure on the queen side. The problem with knight a6 is you're giving up on the idea of b5. So after a move like knight a6, I think white then will play for a break in the center because black's lost so much time. Yeah, the knight's gone a6 to c7 back to a6 again. And the other problem is that on b4, I'm not sure it looks like a pretty outpost, but I'm not sure actually how much that knight will participate in the game. From there, I mean, I'll switch to the king side. I'll play, e4 and maybe f4 and sorry, yeah, e4 and f4 and e5 and this kind of plan. And I think the problem would be that yes, you've got your outpost, but it's a little bit slow. I think that's what the theory would probably say.
Yeah, it's Andy here again. The other plan would be after b6 to play bishop a6 and try and just take that knight off on c4.
Yeah, I mean that's a very normal plan. And then of course white will have the queen on d2 and a pawn on b3, and white will play b takes c4. And yeah, black. I think black will then have trouble. Black will have trouble playing b5 because white will have like the c pawn and the a pawn and the knight on c3 and the possibility of putting things on the b file. So what black will lose by that is the option to play for b5. So I think again in that situation, white will play for white will be then play down the center. White will play for e4 and f4 and e5 for free in effect because the extra black pawn is not very useful on the b file.
Jim here, what would you say your opponent did wrong? Because he seems to have played some quite sensible moves and you've crash somebody's 25-50. So
you know, it's funny. I've never put. I don't think I've ever put this game through a computer. So it's kind of like, you know, this is going to sound like a strange thing to say, but people now don't play the Benoni in the computer age because and people are even wondering about the King's Indian, whether these openings are actually sound or not. I think more so that the Benoni is the Benoni a sound opening. I mean, probably. I mean, okay, for a start, this line that I talked about, this sharp line I talked about, where black plays b5 and white plays knight takes d6. This where was it? This line where black plays b5 here. This line, this crazy line. I think this is considered kind of sharp and maybe equalish. Black's kind of not worse than black is in any other chess variation. So I think that's one way. But I'm not going to claim that my strategy is a winning strategy. So if we go on a little bit. I mean, could you argue he's played b5 too quickly? Could you argue he could play rook b8 and a6 and b5? I don't know. I mean, again, this position, I doubt this position is a winning position. I have strategical aims, but I'm not sure it's. Yeah, this position is very nice for white. I mean, I guess we can check with our engines at some point. But is it winning? Don't think so. But by now, I think I am doing better than white should be doing. So I think somewhere around here, if there's something wrong, maybe b5 was too quick. Not sure. If I had to guess, I would say b5 was too quick, and that this position is better than it should be.
It's Kevin here. It's just a comment, really. I think the key to your game here, your victory here, was you've got extraordinary patience. And this is a weakness for amateurs. We tend to rush into things instead of building up the position. And I noticed you played lots of probing moves, little moves, moving the queen one square, moving it back, and so on and so forth. Is that Karpovian, I would say?
Oh yeah, I'm patient. Yeah. I think I enter a game expecting it to go on all day, and I managed it in the last but one 4 NCL. I achieved it. I had 138 mover. I think it's my 26th rook bishop against rook. You know, at the start of a game, I'm perfectly happy for the game to take forever. I find that perfectly pleasurable. I mean, I don't get fed up when I'm playing. I enjoy playing, and I enjoy accumulating small advantages. I enjoy that style.
Where do you get your stamina from then, Keith? Because I think you're the same age as me, aren't you? 62, and I think you do decline a little bit in your chess skills, but you seem to have gone the other way, particularly in blitz.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I did that marathon thing the other day, and I managed to keep going for the whole 24 hours. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe I'm just having a lucky run of stamina, and then at some point it'll go the other way. I don't know. But yeah,
Sonatogen, I think.
Yeah. maybe it's the statins or the blood pressure tablets. I don't know. I feel like I have better stamina now than when I was younger, but that just doesn't make biological sense. So I just don't know. But yeah, I don't tend to tire during games and during tournaments. But I did when I was younger. You know, when I first played the very first weekend open that I won, it was a tournament in Bromsgrove, and I scrambled home with 4 out of 5. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. I can't ever do that again. That was absolutely exhausting. But then, you know, then I kind of got used to it. And then when I played in an international tournament, I played in the Benedictine. I don't know if any of you guys were around for the Manchester Benedictine. I played in this Benedictine tournament in 1978, and I just got so tired by the second half of the tournament that I just my play went downhill. But then I played a number of international tournaments, and then that stopped happening. I got used to playing 9-rounders, 1 game a day, and then organisers started organising 9-round tournaments in 5 days, and that was horrible at first. That was like, oh, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. 2 games of chess a day for 4.5 days. It's crazy. But then you get used to it. So I don't know. Maybe you get used to it. Maybe you just get used to what you do.
You do a lot of walking.
Yeah, I do a lot of coastal walking. Yeah.
That's probably why.
And I'm probably not. I probably kind of, just jokes about alcohol. I'm probably reasonably sensible. Like I spend most of my time at home not drinking alcohol, and being reasonably sensible. I do a lot of walking. I don't take in too many calories, and stuff like and the sea air is good down here, and so on. So maybe I'm lucky constitutionally, and also I'm lucky geographically, and so on. And also enjoy it. I think enjoyment is also a factor. I enjoy long games. I enjoy long sessions.
Very good. That sounds like a good time to take a break, I think.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Let's take a break for 4 or 5 minutes. Thank you, Keith, and then we'll come back.
Awesome. Okay. So this game, this was at London Classic 2016. It's against another very strong player, what we used to call a super GM when we call anybody over 2600 a super GM. This is the French Grandmaster Sébastien Mays. He was 2608 in 2016 when I played him. He won the tournament anyway, the London Classic Open anyway, despite losing this game. So this, and what's curious is that it's not a very correct game, but it kind of demonstrates. It demonstrates that the kind of level of practical problems you can set an opponent by not necessarily playing correctly, but playing. I don't want to say courageously, but posing. Well, it's a good advert for posing problems, even if they're not sound problems. So anyway, I'll plunge straight in. By the way, after this game, my results went in one direction and my opponents went in a completely different direction. So he went on to win the tournament, and I went on to flounder in the middle somewhere. So this was my highlight. So we have a G3 King Dindin, which is what I usually play the G3. In this position, I'll have doubled with D5. The idea of D5 is if they play C6, you take and they recapture and you go knight D4, and suddenly they find they've lost the pawn on C6. Or if they go E6, then you take it, and you've slightly softened their structure. And you made a gain according to the hierarchy of pawns. But there are problems with D5. One of them is knight B6. So I tend to not play D5 so much now. And in the after 30, 35, nearly 40 years of trying all sorts of kind of minor lines against this knight D7 line, it eventually, about 7 years ago, I finally realised that you have to play E4 to try and look for an advantage. I've dabbled with B3 and E3 and Bishop B2 and Queen C2 and these slow systems, but none of it's any good. So now I went E4.
Steve here.
Hi, Steve.
You say you've played the G3 line against King's Indian for many years. What particularly attracts you to the G3 line as opposed to other things? Is it because you're a very patient player who doesn't mind playing long games and you're in for the long haul rather than trying to blast black off the board with something more immediate, or what is it that what's the reason that you favour this particular line?
Well, first of all, the obvious, I was about to say I'm a positional player and it's a positional line, but that's not really a very good answer, because the main lines are also positional. The main King's Indian lines, where white attacks on a queen side and black attacks on a king side, they're very positionally grounded. But the problem, it was a practical problem. I play a lot of chess. When I love playing chess, and I play a lot of chess. I play 150 under normal in non-COVID circumstances. I play 150, even 200 games a year. If you play that much chess, you can't get into these really complex, difficult positions that require a lot of analysis, game after game after game. It's not that I can't analyze. It's that I would have to change my whole, kind of way of living my life. So the G3 systems are very easy to play. They don't require a huge amount of. You don't have to. They're very straightforward plans. You're not likely to get checkmated. You can play for pawn structures, which I like, which I'm very comfortable in. You can play for a better pawn structure, and you're not afraid of exchanges because you've got the better pawn structure. So it's very relaxing. It's very easy to play. It's not tiring. I am capable of getting tired if I play very complex chess. Yeah, the brief answer is that I wouldn't be able to play as much chess if I was having these really tough tussles where I was trying to play accurately to avoid being checkmated on the king side game after game.
I suppose for the same reasons, it's a good choice for those of us that don't particularly want to spend a lot of time studying. I
agree.
Studying variations, get some basic idea of what the plan is, and churn out a lot of the same moves and be comfortable with a fairly simple plan.
I agree. I think that the G3 systems aren't part of the kind of rat race of opening theory. You don't have to find out every single game that's happened to know the latest wrinkle.
Good choice for those of us who aren't studious.
Yeah. We don't like opening theory. I mean, I personally don't like opening theory. Yeah. I'm of the Magnus Carlsen school. I prefer looking at unusual endgames with not many pieces on the board to analysing opening theory. So I don't want some complex latest wrinkle kind of stuff going on.
Thanks.
So takes rook e8, h3. In this position, the first time I played these main lines, instead of doing the e3 and b3, was against Satovsky in the London Classic, possibly the year before this game. And I just casually played rook e1 here, just not knowing theory, and he played knight g4, which is quite an amazing move. would that make sense? Knight g4. Yeah, knight g4. That's right. And because d4 is hanging, and black equalises straight away. So I now know that you play h3 first to stop that kind of thing. a6. So this is an attempt to play the Gallagher system. I don't know if any of you guys play King's Indian with black, or play the Gallagher system, or have played a Gallagher system. But anyway, it's a sharp attempt to sack a pawn and get lots of play. So it's not, in other words, it's something I don't like to have to play against. And so I have to devise systems for dealing with the Gallagher system, whereby I can still keep a positional aim without having to play in some kind of sharp, ever-changing theoretical tussle. So in this game, I dealt with the Gallagher system as follows. I played rook e1, he played rook b8, and now he wants to play c5 and then b5, which involves a sacrifice of the d pawn, black getting lots of play. So I bypassed all that stuff by playing a4. So positionally, that's a mistake. Does anybody know why that's a mistake positionally? What a good positional reply to that would be?
Would you play a5, Keith?
Yeah, a5 is
control that b4 square.
Yeah, a5 is normally in these positions. A4 is a positional error because of the reply a5, which my opponent played. My thinking was, yes, I've given him all these black squares, b4, c5, but he's taken a lot of time doing this. He's played a6 and a5 and rook b8. Rook b8, you could almost argue, is worse than not moving at all. Well, rook b8 is a nothing move, and a6 and a5. He's lost 2 tempi. So that I thought, well, yes, he's gained position, but he's lost 2 tempi. So, and I've avoided opening theory. This probably won't be theory. So that was a limit of my thinking. I played knight b5. This is the other point is that because black hasn't already played c6, and this is worth remembering in these kinds of structures. If black hasn't played c6 but plays a5, then b5 is a good place to park the knight for a while at least, because then c6 is very hard to play. So you've got a kind of outpost. A little bit annoying for black that night. I don't want to give the impression that this is a really accurately played game, or that I've somehow controlled it from beginning to end, because believe me, it's going to be far from it. So, okay, what's that threatening? What am I threatening in this position? If it was my
knight takes c7.
Yeah, knight takes c7, queen takes c7, bishop takes d6, winning the rook on b8. So black must take measures against that, and so he plays knight h5. Actually, I wonder what would happen. I guess if I played knight c7 here, then knight takes f4 would at least be a good exchange. Actually, the knight goes all around the houses, doesn't it? It goes knight takes c7, knight takes f4, knight takes e8, knight takes g2, even hitting the rook on e1. So I'll end up losing material in that line. But in general, one shouldn't look at such things because that bishop on f4 is too precious. So I dropped it back. Maybe or maybe not threatening. Bishop takes c5, d takes c5, queen takes d8, knight takes c7. But he doesn't want to find out. So he prepares to take back with the b pawn. But in fact, you rarely give up that bishop, even if it is to win a pawn. Drop b1. Bishop e6. And now I'm threatening knight c6, so he hasn't got time to take my c pawn. Queen d7. Take the bishop off. And okay, so this position, white to play. Any ideas?
How about b4? Oh, sorry, the c3 is hanging, sorry.
How about bishop takes c5 and then knight d5? Is that?
Well,
okay, so let's switch on. Let's put that on the board. No, I think b2 is b2 hanging. I think you're probably hanging b2. Sorry, did you say knight b5 or knight d5? Knight b5.
I said knight d5, but I'll shadow to b5 if.
Yeah, well, I think here there's two problems. One is that b2 is hanging. The other is that you're giving up a very, very good piece. So even if b2 wasn't hanging, if black played bishop d4, this bishop would be really a dominant piece. You look at the difference in the two bishops. My bishop on g2 is really quite impotent. It's not. It's just stuck behind my pawns.
Yes.
But black's dominating the board. I mean, there's a threat on g3. Knight takes g3. So
yeah.
I think in general, I think you need a very, very good reason before you give up. I mean, I almost think that white's bishop in these positions is almost worth a rook. It's a very, very precious minor piece.
Right.
Knight b5. I think that again, you're not really threatening anything.
No, I don't. No, I didn't.
I think if knight b5, black will just ignore it and maybe double rooks on the e file. I'm not sure where I'm going with that knight. I mean, I have one idea of maybe coming after the a pawn, but I think that while I'm doing that, my e pawn will come under a lot of pressure. Knight f6 and rook e8, and again, I'm a little bit afraid of the power of that g7 bishop unopposed, and also maybe c6 can even come at some point, and a knight will have to go back again. So I think I'm really reluctant to give up that bishop. But what I'd like to,
as Blackhead has said, apart from that, all right. Okay.
Thinking back to your previous game, Keith, how about Queen d2?
Yeah, Queen d2 is
protecting that c3 knight.
Yeah, it's a principled move. It's kind of similar to what I played. It's almost the same as what I played. I played Queen c2. It's basically, I didn't give it too much thought. It's a pawn sack, and my thinking was that black's pride and joy is the bishop in a King's Indian. It's the bishop on g7. If black grabs the pawn, then actually I don't know if it's this move that he can grab it. No, he doubles first. And no, this is the moment. So actually, Queen c2 is a very normal move, in fact. But now black is threatening. Black is threatening to win a pawn with bishop takes c3, and then something either capturing on e4 or capturing on a4. So this is a key moment. So what should white play here? I don't know if there's an absolute correct answer. I'm just curious to see what ideas you have.
Bishop takes knight.
Good old bishop takes knight.
Bishop C1.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it's white to move. Sorry, I've messed up. It's white to move. It's I sacrificed the pawn with rook D1. I think that there's I can defend the pawn. I can happily defend the pawn. I can play, for example, I could play G4 and then F3, G4 knight F6 and then F3, or I'm not sure whether I can play knight. Let me think about this for a moment. No, I can't play knight. I can't quite make knight B5 work. But you know, I can defend the pawn if I want to. I can probably move the bishop somewhere, like D2. Would that defend the pawn? Yes, that would defend the pawn. I can defend the pawn in a number of ways, but without really actually giving it much thought, I sacrificed the pawn. And so my thinking was I'll have an E3 bishop, and black will have weak black squares, and black King's Indian players don't like to give up their G7 bishop. So, and that was my only thinking. It wasn't deep. It was I'll sack the pawn and I'll just play chess. He took it, and now I think he already went a tiny bit wrong. I think here he should take the e pawn. I think he didn't want to because he's opening up the position for my two bishops. But I think that I think at some point I have looked at this game with the computer, and he should play knight e4, and then black's doing very well. But what's interesting is just by sacrificing a pawn like this, a very strong player, 2600 player, goes wrong. If I'd played a normal move and not sacked the pawn, he wouldn't have gone wrong. He would have just played good chess, and it would have been, the chances of my winning the game wouldn't have been that high. So yeah, he goes wrong already. He takes the a pawn. He should take the e pawn. The queen takes a4. I mean, I guess he wants to. He thinks, well, he's taken that one. He's threatening things like he wants to swap the queens off with things like queen b4 or queen b3. He wants to maybe take the e pawn next. So he's just kind of, it's not for a human. How do you decide between? I mean, I don't know. What would you guys play? Would you take on e4? Would you take on a4 or do something else?
Take on e4 because it comes with tempo and is more central.
Yeah, I mean it is it's the best move, taking on e4, and then black's better. I've got some compensation because I've got two bishops and there's no bishop defending the king, but black's better after knight takes e4. This is a minor error, so I played g4. I've got to attack now. So this is not a typical Arkell game. A typical Arkell game is all about the pawn structure. The pawns have played a different role in this game. In this game, the pawns played. There's a few important breaks that I make with the pawns, and I sacrifice a pawn. But as far as the hierarchy of pawns goes, that takes a back seat in this game. So knight f6 and bishop h6. Important move. This ties black up quite a lot. So in this position, knight takes e4 isn't possible because bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, and then queen takes f6 is probably, black can take some rooks and do some checks, but I think that's probably mate. Taking on e4 isn't possible. So I'll put that bishop's very good on h6. So naturally, black wants to exchange the queens, and naturally, I want to keep them on. And he just wants to harass my queen. He wants to come after my c pawn. He wants to play knight c5, keep the pressure on e4, possibly drive me away from c4. And he's also, you'll see later on, he's also got designs against b2. So he thinks that his king is reasonably safe because at the moment I only have one bishop in the attack. But he wants to just keep harvesting pawns. So rook e3, a4. I was attacking the knight, so a4, and f4. Why not? Knight c5, queen e2 to maintain the defense of c4. Knight a5. So what do I play now? Now black's threatening either queen takes c4 or knight takes c4. So what should I play now? How do I defend this position? Or maybe I don't defend. Maybe I can attack. Any ideas?
Can you play F5?
F5.
Okay, the problem is that after GF, my bishop's on pre.
Yes.
Otherwise, F5 will be great. I'll play it in a flash.
Does E5 work?
Okay, how would it go then? Let's see. E5. I'll play black. So E5. What happens after knight takes C4?
Oh, right. Okay.
Can you play bishop F1?
Oh, then E4's on pre. I think you're dropping E4.
Doesn't that just leave rook C1?
Yeah, I have to play rook C1, yeah. And knight B3 attacking the rook. Now, there's only one square. And what is that square?
C3.
Forced. And knight D4 attacking the queen.
Oh, these knights are a nuisance.
These knights are an absolute nuisance, yeah. I mean, they're after C4, they're after B2, and black's already one pawn up. There's one problem. Okay, so I move the queen to D1, attacking the knight. And black secures the knight on D4. There's one problem. Can anybody see what? There's a problem that's starting to occur in black's position. Can you see what that problem is? There's a lot of good things about black's position, but there is one problem.
His queen looks a bit offside. It doesn't look like it's getting back into the game very easily.
Absolutely spot on. The problem with black's position is that the queen and also the A5 knight, they're just cut off from the action. That they're trying to harvest pawns, but in a way, you could think of it. My whole army wants to checkmate black, and the queen and the knight. If I can conjure up some sort of kingside attack, then in practice, the queen and knight will just be feeling very, very uncomfortable. So if I can just find some way, some idea to get near that black king, then I'm going to have a lot of fun. So we'll C5. So I played F5. Shouldn't have played that move actually. I wanted you to find that move yourself. So I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I've done it. So okay, let's analyze this position. I'm sure one or many of you would have suggested F5. But I've gone and done it for you. So how does analysis go?
Well, as you said before, if we take on F5 with the pawn and then the bishop is hanging.
Yeah, this is the main thing I had to consider. I would love to play F5, and I wanted to make F5 work, but you have to have a good answer to G takes F5 attacking my bishop. I'll just say one thing about this position before I played F5, and that is I've now got to the point where I don't think I can hold the queen side any longer. I don't think there's any move that black threatening queen takes B2, black threatening knight takes C4, sometimes B5. I don't think there's any move that holds it all together. I mean, I don't think there's a single move that defends both C4 and B2. So it wasn't a difficult decision to make to play F5. But I will say that I had planned it. I didn't just find it. I didn't just get to this position and think, oh dear, I'm lost. Oh, hang on a minute, I can play F5. It was a little bit more sophisticated than that. So, okay, G takes F5. What is my idea?
Rook G3, Queen G4.
So after G takes F5, you're going Queen G3.
No. G takes, pawn takes, sacrificing the bishop. Then Rook G3 and Queen G4.
Okay, so takes Rook takes bishop. Rook G3 check King F8.
And Queen G4.
Rook F6.
We'd have to sit on the board, I think.
I know. Okay, we'll put this on the board as it's quite complex. So you want to play you want to play rook g3 check. I think king f8 is the best, and then here threatening to win a rook with queen g7 check. But then I think this looks like it holds. The king's going to go to e7, and I'm kind of running out of attacking pieces.
Yes.
I think that's the end of the attack. But it's kind of you're thinking in the right kind of ways. It's this kind of thing. But so g takes f5, white to play.
Yeah, I think unless White's thinking goes into a higher gear, he's just lost full stop. I mean, the queen side is crumbling, as you said.
Yeah.
So it's now or never.
Yeah, it's now or never.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't play f5 if I'm just giving another pawn away and leaving.
No, I'm not for one moment suggesting. Yeah.
But yeah, you're totally right that I have to have had f5 ready. Otherwise, I would have had to play the last moves at least a little bit differently to how I played them.
Could take that with the e pawn after GF EF.
That is absolutely materially that saves the day, yeah, because rook takes h6 is no longer possible because e8 is on pre. So you're right from the point of view of not losing the bishop. You're absolutely right. The problem is that after GF EF, rook takes e3. Materials just getting swapped off. So GF EF, rook e3, rook e3, rook e3, bishop e3. I'm still, then it's his move. He can maybe play knight takes c4, attacking that bishop, and I've swapped off a lot of stuff. So it's kind of, I just think I'm going to lose on material. I'm going to lose because I'm going to be 3 pawns down, and Black's queen will soon come into my position.
So I think what you're saying is f5 is storm in a teacup, not worth it.
I mean, f5 is. I accidentally played it. I didn't mean to play it. I wanted to ask you to find my move, but I accidentally played it. But f5 is the move I played.
Oh right, okay, I didn't get that.
It is the move I played, and it does work. But so my challenge is to make it work. How did I make it work?
Keith, is the idea? Yeah. Sorry, Keith. Is the idea that after GF, EF, rook e3, you don't capture back the rook with the rook, but you capture back with the bishop and the threat of bishop d2, trying to sort of trap the queen in?
Oh, that's an interesting. Yeah, just keep more pieces on the board. But I think knight takes c4 would be.
Yeah,
still, yeah.
You can go queen g4 and queen g5. That might trap the rook if rook takes bishop.
Aha. Excellent. Well done. This is in fact the game. So after takes, this is a very bizarre situation, because nearly always in chess you can't just leave a bishop like that on pre to a rook. But what makes this possible is the fact that the queen and the knight, the a5 knight, are just so out of the game. So I've got all this time that you would not normally have in the middle game. You would never be able to just go hunting after a rook on h6 in the way I'm able to here, because there would be some queen somewhere defending everything. But that queen is just hopeless on b4. So yeah, after rook takes h6, well, I think the problem is that Black now has to play rook takes h6, because otherwise I'll just come down to g-line and give checkmate. This is now forced, and you're spot on. Queen g4 check, and after king h8, yeah, we get rook g3, and all these pieces on the queen side just make it impossible for Black to defend without giving up a whole rook for a pawn. Black just can't defend g7, and even after king f8,
it drops with tempo pretty much.
Yeah, even after f8, this move again, wouldn't normally work. You could never normally do a move like that, but because there would be like queens and knights in a defense. But all those things are just having nothing to do with the attack, and so in a way, I'm attacking with my queen and 2 rooks and other things against a king and some rooks, and that's it. So that's why this works. So in fact, I snare the rook in broad daylight, So, but he, he has ideas. After queen check, he plays rook g6. This was his idea, and his idea is to make his king safe, and then just have lots of pawns for the exchange. Leave me with, a bad bishop, passive rooks. So I have to take. He takes back, and so another important moment. So yeah, look at my pieces now. They've lost all their power. They've lost all their activity, or have they? So I'm now 2 pawns down. I can't defend b2 properly. I can't defend c4 properly. Black just wants to tidy up everything with king g7. Perhaps black wants to play rook e5. So you need to strike quick.
h4.
h4. Okay, let's try knight takes c4. Not to win the rook, but to put the knight on e5 and defend everything.
Queen d7 work.
Yes, I like queen d7.
In this position, or after h, immediately you want to go queen d7.
Yes.
Okay, so queen d7. Yeah, principled move going after the rook and possibly the weakness on f7. Can black play rook e5 maybe? I think black can play rook e5, and then the only way I can continue the attack is some move like rook f3, but black will take that, and then when I recapture, there'll be a queen e1 check, and suddenly I'm the one being attacked, and I'm material down.
If it's Kevin here, I'm looking at e5 and try and get that bishop into play. Is there any merit in that?
e5 is a move in this position which you will just play. You play anyway. You just play it. You're spot on, Kev. You just play it. It has to be the move. It doesn't require a lot of calculation because you must bring your piece into the attack. You must bring the bishop into the attack. So yeah, e5 is
kitchen sink.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a kitchen sink job. You play e5. You've got the game you've got the position in a blitz game, in a rapid game, in a bullet game, in a classical game. You play e5.
I think your mate Simon would say, "Bring the pieces to the party."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's I have to go for it. I have to. I'm losing. I'm doing badly in the positionally, and everything. I have to play e5. And no, okay. I'm threatening e takes d6. Again, the queen. I've just got enough time because the queen and the knight are still hopelessly out of the game. I'm threatening to take on d6. Black can't just let me take on d6. So so black takes the opportunity to remove another one of my pieces. Okay, so now what do I do?
Bishop d5.
Yeah, there's no question. Bishop d5, and it contains a threat, which is always useful. If I don't play a move with a threat, then queen takes b2 will just leave me completely on the back foot. So this has a threat of I think it's a threat of mate. It threatens queen g6 check, king h8, queen f6 check, and so on, and a queen and bishop will mate.
He was also wanting to sort of swing the rook across to g3 as well.
Exactly,
and,
yeah.
And also there's bishop f7 ideas, sort of in the mix. So.
Yeah, but the immediate threat is queen g6, with mate in about 6 or something, all checks. So yeah, black must deal with that, and the only way to deal with it, because beating myself, is to because the queenside pieces can't play, is to defend g6 with the king. So black indeed plays king g7. So now what do I play?
I was looking at rook g3 and bishop f7 as a threat.
Queen d7.
Well,
let's start with rook g3. So
you've got queen
rook g3
e1.
does indeed, but I have to be so quick. I mean, rook g3, you're releasing the black queen.
Yeah.
You're allowing queen e1. I just assume that black will be first. I mean, I don't know, but
Queen d7.
Yeah, we'll come to queen d. Queen d7 is correct. Yeah, well done. Queen d7 is the move. I have to not worry about my rook. I mean, I'm allowing a fork, but I can't afford to worry about the fork. I think to give an idea of how fragile my situation is, one tempo, and I think that black will be first. I think black will go check, and if the king moves, well, after the king moves, queen e2 will force the queens off, and that's the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I have to be very, very quick. I have to keep that. I've just got time before that queen finally emerges. So queen d7 is the game. And, well, d7 can't be defended. Knight e6, I just take it off. Queen can't do anything useful in defense. None of the pieces can do anything useful in defense. So, yeah.
Can the king just go to h6 and sort of shrug his shoulders? Well, that has been too far.
I mean, this kind of will transpose to the game, in fact. Yeah, because king h6, I will play queen f7.
Yes.
And this threatens what we'll come to in a minute, and nothing changes, because the only useful move black can play here is winning the rook with knight e2 and knight c3. And yeah, that's the game. Other moves will just allow queen f8 check, and then it'll be a mate with the queen and the rook and the bishop, similar to what we're about to see. So, but yeah, so and I don't think there's any other. I don't think there's any other way to defend here. There's no queen b2 is just too slow. The queen f7 check, and there's a series of checks. So black grabs the rook. Now this is a key moment. Where do you put the king? So this now, okay, now it's his time to analyze. So kind of actually just try and work it out if you can work it out. So don't just say king there, or I'll go king there. Actually, imagine it's your game, your own game, and you've got this position. So yeah, try to work it out to the end. Try to work out the best where to put the king on. He's going to follow up with knight takes rook. This is for sure. Where do you want the king?
If the king goes to the second rank, queen takes b2 will be check, which will be a valuable consideration.
I mean, it won't be check this move if I go. But it will be check if he gets a chance to move again with those things. Then there'll be an annoying check. You're right about that. But I mean that is true. But if I can strike first, if I can get him before he delivers a check, then that wouldn't matter. But so that's really what I'm saying. This is really what the task I'm setting. Can you work out a sequence here where to put the king? And whereby, okay, so then that requires analysis. How would the analysis go after king f1? So black's going to play knight takes rook. So let's try and do it. Let's try and do it blindfold, and then after a while we'll move the pieces a little bit. So let's start by playing blindfold. King f1, knight c3. What's your first move?
Queen f7 check.
Queen f7 check. Yeah. King must go to h6.
Queen f8 check.
Queen f8 check. Let's say the king runs to g5. Remember, the king's on f1 at this point.
h4.
h4. Let's say the king runs to, I don't know, maybe f4.
Can we bring the king to g3 to create a mating net?
At which moment?
So something like queen f8, and then the king goes to g5, and then h4 might be mate if the king is defending, like something like bishop f3, h4.
King can't go to f4 because it's check. And if the queen's on f1.
Okay, let's play a few moves on the board now. So the suggestion was king f1, knight takes c3, queen check, king here, queen check. So we're looking at this idea. Now, how did you say? You said h4.
If the king was on g3. So if Yes. So we could have gone.
But the only problem is that we don't have, in this position, we don't have the option of king g3 for two reasons. Because the knight's covering the square, and because we need two moves. But I mean, your thinking is right. The king needs to stop the black king escaping. You're absolutely right about that. So if we go back to this king f1 idea, after king f1, knight here, queen check, king here, queen check, king here. for example, pawn there check. I don't know. Maybe this is mate as well. I don't know. Is there a mate? Maybe there is a mate against this. Is there a mate?
Queen H6.
Queen H6, king here. I'm slightly concerned it may not be mate. I mean, Queen G6 is now possibly the only move. If Bishop E6, King F3. If you look at this, the king is actually escaping.
Yeah.
Amazingly, it's kind of coming away. So
the king should have been on F2, not F1.
Yeah, I think that with the king on F1, you're giving the black king room to wriggle out. So this is such an important moment.
So in which case, when checked, the king should have come out of his box.
King
So,
F2.
yeah.
King F2.
King F2
knight
is
takes
very,
rook.
very important.
Can the king go straight to F3 after knight takes rook? Because there's no.
Well, okay. So King E2.
Queen,
no, this is a position.
King F3.
Oh,
and there's no check.
No, but
Wow.
the bishop.
Takes bishop.
You're giving the bishop. It's a not very pretty idea, but yeah, you're giving up the bishop.
Oh yeah.
So Queen F7, Queen F7, Queen F8, Bishop F3, and then King G3.
Yeah, Queen F7. Let's do it bit by bit. King H8 loses to Queen G8, mate. So King must go there. And your next move is Queen F8.
Yes.
Now, if King H7, we can all calculate the variation. Bishop G7. Sorry, Bishop G8, King H8, Bishop F7, King H7, Queen G8, King H6, Queen G6, mate. We've all done that kind of thing lots of times. So, so King must go forwards. So let's look at. So we need to look at King G5, and we need to look at King H5. So let's look at King H5. Let's do it. Let's look at King H5 without putting the moves on the board.
Queen Bishop F3 check.
Bishop F3 check.
And then King H4 is Queen H6, mate. So King G5 would then be forced.
And King G3.
Then is there?
The H4 check.
Yeah, because after King G3, there might be an annoying knight move. Might be an annoying knight E4 and then a Queen B3 check, and suddenly the black queen's giving checks. So yeah, you're after King G5. You said
H4 check.
Sorry, I'm playing King H5. Sorry, King H5. How are you playing against King H5?
King H5, Bishop F3.
Bishop F3, King G5.
H4.
H4. King takes H4 is the only legal
Queen
move.
H6.
It's checkmate, correct. So King H5, it's a forced checkmate starting with Bishop F3. So the king must go to, therefore, well, the only other possibility is there where my opponent played. This is still a game, actually. My opponent played King G5, so now what happens?
You still play H4 check.
It's the only move, yeah. H4 check. So now we have 3 legal moves. We've got King takes H4. He resigned, by the way, after this move. But the moves are King takes H4, King H5, and King G4. So let's start with King G4. How do we win against King G4?
Bishop F3 check.
King takes.
Be careful.
H4. He's mate again now. Yeah. So King G4.
Queen
yeah, mate again. Yeah. So okay, let's try. King takes H4.
Queen H6 check.
King G4.
Bishop
F3.
F3 check.
Bishop E6.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. After the bishop's got used to going to F3, but in this one variation, the bishop goes to that square.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that's it. It's after H4 that my might resign.
Brilliant.
Oh, I see. Oh, I did see. Yes.
So that was it. That's
good calculation.
It's a mixture.
Keith, I prefer that game, but I'm a hacker, you see, so I enjoyed that.
You've shown me, mate. You've shown me when you beat me in that Simmel game. Beautiful. That was a beautiful game. Your Simmel game, and I'm not this. I'm not saying this is a beautiful game, but your win against me in the Simmel was a beautiful game. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, that was kind of. I mean, a computer laughs at this game. It kind of says my sacrifice was unsound. It finds some really amazing defense at some moment. It finds some queen takes B2 at some moment. It's like the computer laughs at the game, but in a human against human situation, that it was enough to set problems that a 2600 player couldn't deal with. So just practical chess.
Daniel King says his queen was in Siberia.
Yeah. Or worse.
One line I wasn't clear about, Keith, was when you went King G4, and then you just said Bishop F3 check, King takes H4. But could the king run to H3 behind the pawn?
Let's check that. Let's have a look at that. So this was in this variation with the king on F2, right?
Yeah.
So it was King H5 or King? It was King
H5.
King G5. Yeah, that's the best defense.
You went H4.
Yeah.
King G4.
Okay, King G4. Yeah, we know that King H4, Queen H6, King G4, Bishop E6 is mate. We know that King H5, Queen H8, King G4. Actually, I don't think we talked about this line, but King H. Oh no, King H5. There's two ways. We can either go here. Oh no, we can't because the king can run to F4. Sorry, no. After King H5. Oops, sorry. After King H5, we have to play this move, and then Queen there, mate.
If you come forward.
And you were talking about this move. Okay, so yeah, this position I think we have to. Oh yes, if Bishop F3, then King H3. Yes, King hides on H3. Yeah, so here we have to do it accurately. We have to start with this one, so the king can't run to H3. And now there's only two moves, and both of those moves. Well, actually, it's funny. There's two moves. They allow a different queen mate. If king there, we have queen there mate.
Yeah.
And if king there, we have queen there mate.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual for a queen and a bishop, well, and a pawn as well, to be able to just keep checking until it's mate. But again, it's because all the black pieces just never got it. They stayed stuck there till the end. And my king also, there's some lines where the black king could escape, but my king on F2 is also stopping some mad dashes to the queen side.
Very good game, Keith.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Have we got time, Keith, for any questions? If anyone's got any quick questions?
Fine by me.
Okay, open it up if anyone's got any questions. I'll have a quick question first, if I may. Keith, you're playing at the Daventry 4 NCL after your last 4 NCL online success. What's your strategy for Daventry?
Actually, my last 4 NCL wasn't online. My last 4 NCL was over the board at where was it? Harrogate.
So yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, yeah.
But I need to. It's for boring. I mean, I worked out some while ago. Might sound a little bit conceited, but I worked out I've won 416 tournaments, and I've probably played about over 1,000 weekend tournaments, and so it's kind of, I've given up on strategies. I just play. I don't prepare. I don't prepare for the individual players. My preparation has been playing Blitz online, to be quite honest. Yeah, so I got to the point now where I've just been doing it all for so long. I just play. If I'm good enough, I'm good enough. If I'm not good enough on a day, I'm not good enough on a day. But I want to win a tournament, but so do a number of other players want to win a tournament. So we'll see how it goes.
Keith, it's Kevin. So how would you advise a player like me? I'm playing at Daventry, but I'm not playing in the Open. So how would you advise the amateur to prepare for a tournament?
Make sure you're happy with your system. Brush up on your own repertoire. So that by doing that, then you don't have to conserve energy. You don't have to waste energy during the tournament. If you're comfortable with your own repertoire, then you can go to the tournament and take it easy. And so we were talking about stamina earlier. One of the things that helps my stamina is I don't prepare. I don't prepare for games during tournaments. So I have those 2 hours to relax. So I would say, especially like us guys when we're seniors, and I would say do your work, check your repertoire before the tournament. I'd also say do a lot of tactical puzzles, that kind of thing. I mean, I do that sometimes. Go on like Light Chess or chess.com and just do puzzles. I do endgame puzzles, and I do all puzzles. I've only started doing that in the last sort of year or so, and then it kind of sharpens you up a little bit. So I'd say just generally do chess. Generally, just get a feel for chess. Don't come into it cold. Don't come into it cold. Just be having looked at chess, tried to solve puzzles, brush up on your repertoire, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Keith, who's the strongest player you've ever played, and who's the strongest player you've ever beaten?
It depends how you define the question, because the strongest player I've ever played and beaten, the strongest player I've ever played is Magnus, but only now. But when I played him, he wasn't the strongest. So, I mean, I beat him when he was a little kid. But the strongest player when they were that strong. It depends whether you want rating or name. I mean, the biggest name that I've beaten are people like Larson and Califman and even our own Mickey Adams. These are the strongest players I've beaten. I mean, yeah, I'm quite proud of my Larson record. For example, I beat him when he was about 8 years younger than I am now. I beat him in I think it was 89 or maybe 90, 89, and at the Watson Foley Williams Grandmaster tournament. And then a year later, and I was black, he's a Caracan. A year later, he had a chance to get his revenge, and he's a Caracan again, and I got a draw. So that was it. I played Larson twice and got a win and a draw.
Very good.
So that's probably one of the biggest names, but strength-wise, yeah, I mean, Rod Stein's 27, probably not so well known, but Rod Stein is 2700, and I beat him in quite a nice rook ending with black. And I guess I've been I've been most of the top British players at one point or another, and I'm good at drawing with them. I got a whole series of draws against our best players, as well as losses, of course. Yeah, and I beat these guys. I beat the good top players online sometimes. Like my online score against Caruana is 2 draws and 2 wins and a draw. And the draw was because I lost on time when he had no material. I didn't have time to mate. So I've got a very freaky good score against Caruana online, and a good score against Nakamura online. But yeah, over the board, probably. Yeah, I've beaten a few 2700s basically.
Good.
You say you don't prepare between rounds. You just relax. You know, at what point when you sat at the board do you decide what opening you're going to play? Are you going in with one plan as white and one plan as black? And
there's some players who I know what they play, and I know what I shouldn't play against them. Yeah, somebody might, for example, play the Queen's Gambit accepted with black. And the way they play it, I just don't like the positions. So therefore, I would play knight f3 or c4. But I wouldn't. But if I don't know my opponent so well, I don't think I would bother looking through all their games to see whether that's the case or not. So I just when I know, I think about my move orders. Or if I'm black and I know that my opponent, for example, my own variation of the Caracan, the c5 on move 3. If I know that somebody is going to be very, very well prepared, then I think c5 is a little bit dubious, and therefore I either probably won't play the Caracan against that player. But I have other systems where I get Caracan type positions. For example, the centre counter. There's some ways in which I play the modern, where I end up with Caracan type positions. I'll play like a g6 and then a c6 and then a d5. I'll play the Fort Knox in the French, where I'll play e6 and then d5, and then unless they play the advance, then I'll play d takes e4 and get a Caracan type position. So I've because I don't prepare, I try to make it as hard as possible for my opponents to prepare. So I've forced them to have to look at 5 or 6 different things that I might do when I'm trying to get the same kind of position each time. So if they got 2 hours of prep time, they can only spend 12 or 15 minutes on each one of those. And I also try to have a lot of different move orders to my systems. So you know, in a fortnight, so I can play a lot of different move orders. In the centre counter, I can move the queen to A5, D6, or D8. So all the time, I'm thinning down the amount of time they've got to devote to each specific thing, because I'm very vulnerable to a good piece of preparation, and occasionally it happens, and then I can get wiped out very easily with black, or even with white sometimes. It's my opening theory is my weakness, but I've got a great chess memory. I've not got a great memory for things I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
I think I need to do a short video clip and stick it on YouTube called "How to Beat Keith Arkell at Daventry," because you just summarised what you need to look at.
Well, make sure your dad watches it.
The problem is that even if you don't get this on in time for Daventry, it'll be on at some point for you to talk after. But no, I mean, I think people know me. The people that I play all the time, they all know already. They know my weaknesses anyway. So it's just, you know.
Very good.
Yeah, I just have to have some little twist at my sleeve, some little wrinkle. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, look, thank you very much, Keith, for coming on again. Very interesting, and I think we all enjoyed it. Let's show our appreciation. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot.
And as I say, good luck in Daventry and in future tournaments. We'll be following what you're doing, and hopefully would like to see you back on this channel again.
Oh, thanks very much. I love the interaction, and you've all been brilliant, and so yeah, thanks for making it pleasurable for me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.